I'd like to address the issue of accountability because this is the area where leadership can go the right way or the wrong way. Oppressive accountability, holding people accountable and making them responsible for their actions can become a very negative influencer in our organizations and create disunity in organizations. In fact, crack up a good outfit pretty quick through improper leadership. I'll just go back to a day when I was a young officer. I was a captain. And the days when I was a captain, believe me, I was really young because it was right at the end of the Vietnam era, and officers were getting promoted very quickly. So I was a very young captain and had about the experience of one of our second lieutenants today. At any rate, was a troop commander on the border in Germany and was accountable for a pretty large formation of troops. And I had a vehicle full of 5 soldiers up on what was called a PVP, a primary vantage point, looking out over East Germany. And what those soldiers were doing was unacceptable behavior, to say the least. They'd done some maintenance on the track, had taken out some stuff from the final drives on the vehicle, so it was kind of free-moving track. But frankly, they were disengaged in what they were doing. There were indications of potential drug use by some of these crew members. Irrespective of it all, with the crew inside the vehicle and with the brakes not working because of the maintenance, this vehicle actually rolled off this hilltop and ended up, of all places, in East Germany in a crash. It was a disaster. We had 5 soldiers on the other side of the border injured. I mean, it's just a disaster. And by the time I got to the site, there was no option here except to go get the soldiers, rescue them, et cetera, et cetera. So at any rate, it took about a second before my regimental commander, now I was a troop commander, so 2 levels up, even in those days, Colonel Clark, I believe Colonel Clark is deceased now, but sent the word out that Troop Commander Captain Bell would report to the regimental headquarters in Fulda, Germany. I remember going to my wife and saying, "It's over. I'm going to be fired. I'm going to be relieved of my command." And she was heartbroken. I said, "Look, I had a bad thing happen on the border. I'm accountable, and Colonel Clark is going to hold me accountable, and I will be relieved. So we're going to have to get out of the Army because that's what you do in our Army. You relieve people when things don't work well." So I went to Fulda, distraught, but ready for the ultimate accountability that I knew that Colonel Clark would bring to bear on me. Walked into his office, reported, "Sir," and I'd never met the regimental commander in my life. I was a new troop commander, didn't know him from Adam, and there he was in all his splendor and glory, and stood there ready to receive the report and be relieved. And he said, "Hey, what happened on the border out there, Captain?" And I explained to him in detail. He said, "Okay, what did you learn from that?" And I told him what I was learning from it. And he then began a dialogue. We had an under the oak tree counseling session in his office. He told me to sit down. And he said, "You know, back in the days of," and he went back to early Vietnam and Korea, and I believe even World War II, I'm not exactly sure, when he was a young officer. But he had some experiences. And he began to talk to me and mentor me and hold me accountable, not for that accident. That wasn't the issue. It was my organization and everybody in it. And what, if I were going to stay in that organization, I was going to do in learning from this to prevent this from happening in the future. In over about a half an hour, this full colonel, who had every right and authority, I suspect, had he chosen, to relieve me of my command, made me desire so deeply to be successful, not personally, but to not allow those kind of things to happen with my soldiers ever again, but also to get their jobs done. I felt when I left his office, by the way, he didn't relieve me. He told me he still had confidence in me, that he certainly didn't expect to see these kinds of activities in the future. He wanted me to know there was no pass here. There was no free ticket here. That there would be a time that if something in my unit didn't change for the better, that perhaps he would have to find a new leader. But he was fully prepared to give me another chance. He held me accountable, not directly for that accident. He should have relieved me had he done that, but for the behavior of that organization in the future. And he let me know without any miscue that the way it performed in the future was something he was interested in, and he knew who the troop commander was. And it was a positive mentoring counseling session. I went home to my wife, as a matter of fact, a young wife, and I said, well, I didn't get relieved. And she said, well, I guess it's over with anyway. He's going to give you a bad OER, isn't he? And I said, I don't know. But I'll tell you what he did do, and then we had a discussion about opportunity for leadership, about impacting on the unit, about training and readiness and going to war, and the solemn commitment of leaders in our military to the well-being of our force and the combat actions of this force. All I know is that from that moment on, I believed in that leader. I learned from him every lesson of leadership that I ever knew in the Army. Not only had I been given a second chance, okay, fine, but he had said to me, we want you to be successful. We don't want you to have these kinds of things happening in your organization. We want you to change your outfit for the better. And I'm willing to give you some time to do that. And then I'm going to watch you and evaluate your performance. And if you can't get that done, I could tell, I could smell it. Then we'll find somebody who can. But today, in the middle of this crisis, you're the guy. You're the one we want to change that outfit. It was a life-changing experience for me with Colonel Clark. I would only offer, in terms of accountability, yes, it is essential that we hold our subordinates accountable. But it's got to be done in a way that accountability produces engagement, goodness, and change in the organization, and not an organization of threats and of fear and of harshness. There's plenty of time for that. All commanders have been involved in a range of environments where they had to take aggressive, quick action to change the environment. And we're very good at that. We have legal authorities to do that. We have police powers to do that. That's not about leadership. That's just about executing responsibilities in an environment where we are expected to perform. Leadership is about something different. Holding people accountable can be done in a positive growth pattern, and it can and should be done in a way to give our subordinates not a chance, but to give them the encouragement that they need, that we have the belief, we have the expectation, that they have the tools, the capability, the background, and the experience and the seasoning to mold that unit the way we should mold it to be successful in the Army. So hold your subordinates accountable. Be prepared to write that OER. Relieve them if you must. But remember that our organization is going to perform when you're not there based on what you've taught them while you are there. And holding them accountable in a positive growth way as opposed to a way of fear is the best method for achieving success in our organizations. And I think we all know that. I'll never, ever, at my rank and position today, forget Colonel Egbert Clark. I don't know what they called him, his first name. Perhaps they called him Egbert. And I never really got to know him that well. But he was with me every day of my life in the 14th Cavalry until I left the organization. His persona was right there next to me. I could see him clear as day, and maybe only saw him 2 or 3 more times the rest of the time I was there. It was just the way it was. But Colonel Clark walked with me in all my formations. I was not going to let him down because he gave me a second chance. Hold your subordinates accountable and do it in a way where you walk with them in their motor pools no matter where you are. Even years after you left them, you're still walking beside them, and they know you're there, and they don't want to let you down. They don't want to let the organization down. More importantly, they don't want to let their soldiers down. It's going to be tough. They're going to be focused. They're going to be engaged. They're going to be compassionate. And they are accountable then for the behavior of their soldiers in that outfit. Hold your soldiers accountable. Hold your formations accountable. But do it in a way that you're walking with them when you're not there.